It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends up,
yes!
Caught! Touchdown!
I did it!
Hello, everyone. Welcome on into the Full Court Press. Only a few seconds late there. I was trying to load everything up, so we had about 30 seconds of... I forget what show happens during ours on Fox Sports programming.
Cavino and Rich, I think.
I think that's right. But welcome on into the Full Court Press, the real show.
That's
here
right.
in town.
Walker and Frandsen are better.
Yeah, something like that. All the local sports talk, Utah State, Utah Jazz, local high school sports as well. Thank you for joining us here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Lots to get through today. Utah State losing at San Diego State on Saturday afternoon. Region 11 basketball games. There are also some numbers that got released. I don't know if they were released, just some people decided to finally compile them, about returning production for college football. Just everyone, all 134 teams from last year that are obviously all returning this year. How much do they bring back? What percentage? We'll go through, how Utah State ranks in the Mountain West. Spoiler, it's not too bad. We'll go over all the other Mountain West teams. I also included in mine Washington State and Oregon State, since they're kind of in the Mountain West. So we'll go over all that as well. We'll probably hit on that in the second hour. But yeah, a lot of basketball for today. And I guess starting with that Utah State game at San Diego State. Again, losing 81-67. So kind of a similar margin of defeat as they had against New Mexico, just a little less scoring. 13-point loss in New Mexico, 14-point loss at San Diego State. They were a little closer at times with San Diego State than they were against the Lobos, but for a lot of this game, the Aggies were just playing from a little too far behind.
Yeah, outside of how they opened, it was interesting. Just San Diego State made a change in their roster, starting Powell, which was unusual, something that Utah State hadn't really seen on tape. I'm sure they'd seen him on tape, but having him as a starter was a little bit different. And he played a massive role for the Aztecs. And I just think that length, the physicality more than anything was a challenge for Utah State. And Great Osabar goes to the free throw line one time. And that really surprised me that in the second half at least, the adjustments, we didn't really see Utah State try to be the aggressors and try to force the issue. It was just San Diego State had the Aggies out of sorts for the whole game. And, yeah, they didn't get boat raced in stretches like they did at New Mexico, but they were constantly trying to play catch-up in this game. And it was kind of tough to watch, to be honest, the second half especially.
Yeah, they were just playing on their heels the entire time on offense. They were never being the aggressor. And I think Osabor's lack of free throws is perhaps the most key example for all of that. Like, they didn't really go to Osabor a ton. He did get the ball. He did get his shots up. He led the Aggies in points, goes 8 of 14 for 17 points, but wasn't really pushing San Diego State. And I know he didn't have as great of a matchup because him and Ledee were guarding each other a lot and kind of showed they were pretty much equal. Like, normally they're used to going up against guys that they're bigger and or faster than, and they were kind of a match for each other. And as such, both of them had, they both technically led their teams in points, but both seemed to have fairly quiet games relative to how they normally impact the game.
Yeah.
I mean, Ledee even had 5 turnovers, although Osborne had none, but then Osborne had like 4 fouls. So it's like they were both the leaders in points, although Ledee was tied with, you mentioned Powell, for points on his team. But like, it was a lot of the other players that ended up determining who won this game. San Diego State had that supporting cast. Osabor, didn't get quite as much. You get Falslev, he went 7-11 for 16 points, but Ian Martinez goes 1 for 7. He made his first shot of the game, a three-pointer in like the first couple of minutes. Didn't make a shot the rest of the way. And just, also has 4 turnovers. Darius Brown has 3 turnovers. And Darius Brown goes 4 of 14 from the field. So it's like the Aggies didn't quite get the supporting shooting that Ledee did.
Right, and only 6 points off the bench compared to, 23 points off of the San Diego State's bench. So a big difference there. But look, we talked about how it would be tough, and it's been historically difficult for USU to win there. And the Aggies have had some tough games. They've, by and large, found ways to win those games. But just thinking about San Diego State in the game, were there any comparisons? Were there any teams that the Aggies went up against that may have prepared them for what they were ultimately going to see in San Diego? And it was kind of a bigger team, more physical team in San Francisco. It was a little bit of a bigger lineup in their, oh gosh, now the name of the school is slipping my mind. I got to look up their Santa Clara. That was a little bit bigger roster there. And both of those games were close games for Utah State. And I guess Santa Clara probably a little bit more on the bigger physical side, but nobody really has compared to the physicality of San Diego State so far. And I think that maybe Boise State should have been that way, but they weren't quite as physical. So this was a bit of an eye-opener for USU, for Danny Sprinkle, for his players. None of those guys have played there or gone up against that team. So they kind of got hit in the mouth, and they struggled to adapt, which surprised me a little bit, but it's not the end of the world here for USU.
Yeah, I think they've had 2 games where they really were just didn't seem quite ready for that, and that's their 2 losses in conference play, is New Mexico and San Diego State. I don't know if they were quite ready. In theory, they were ready. They watched film, they ran scout, but just by virtue of you can't ever replicate what you see on film and scout team, they didn't end up being ready. I don't want to fault anyone. It's just they weren't, and they couldn't adjust to that. Now they've gone through a few, and we've seen them, against Boise State, even on the road, they were able to overcome that. A very physical Boise State team where I don't think San Diego State is anything special as far as their physicality and length in the Mountain West. Like, what do they have that other great teams in the Mountain West don't? They have Jaden Ledee. That's about as much as you can say, but other teams have their great forwards or players too. So San Diego State isn't necessarily anything special compared to the rest of the Mountain West. They are obviously a very good team, but it's not like Utah State couldn't have overcome that, couldn't have, adjusted to that. They just didn't. They had a bad game. They're playing on the road, and San Diego State played a better than average game for themselves. They had guys hit shots that normally don't hit shots. That's not something you can prepare for.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, Utah State did struggle from the field, especially outside, whereas San Diego State were making threes like they don't normally do.
Yeah, like that. I put this in my recap. Those of you who read it on CashValleyDaily.com, shameless plug. The 4 guys, it was so Jay Powell's one of them, Elijah Saunders, Darian Trammell, and Micah Parrish. I believe those 4, prior to playing Utah State, combined to shoot 29% on threes this season. And, on decent attempts, those are some of their 3-point shooters, but they're not very good. San Diego State as a whole is not a good 3-point shooting team this year. So those 4 combined to shoot 29% on the season. They shot 7 of 13 against the Aggies. What are you supposed to do against that?
Yeah.
Unless you're having a great offensive game yourself, you're not going to overcome that. Then the Aggies didn't have a great offensive game. And some of that was to San Diego State's credit. They deserve credit for slowing down the Aggies. They did it to the Aggies. It wasn't just Utah State playing bad.
Yeah, I think part of it was that San Diego State was physical. They made it tough in the low post, but they were quick on their closeouts and quick on their rotations. So anytime if it appeared that Great was getting double-teamed, they made it tough for him to pass out of that double team, just the way that they were covering him. And then when that ball finally did come out, whoever it landed with already had somebody on them. The Aggies just had a difficult time finding the open guy. And then when they were open, the shots just weren't falling. This was one of the lowest offensive outputs from Utah State all year. I mean, there's 4 games all year they've scored less than 70 points. and they're 2-2 in those games.
Yeah.
This is a team that needs to score points. But, I mean, it just, one of those nights or days, Utah State goes to a venue where it's tough. They get a great home crowd. You have a guy that normally is a bench guy who gets 4 minutes a game, 5 minutes a game, for a couple of buckets a game, and all of a sudden he comes out and he's dropping three-pointers on you. He's long and lengthy. He's grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, and he ties for the team lead in points. I mean, it's just, how do you prepare for that? I mean, it's just weird. So it's a big learning experience, you'd hope, for Utah State. They've been kind of skating on a couple of these games, getting by, but still finding ways to win. But they kind of got smacked around a little bit at San Diego State. They got to learn from that because it doesn't get much easier this week.
Yeah, and I think they do learn from it. And as opposed to the New Mexico game where I felt like in a lot of ways Utah State was outclassed physically, on the boards they just really struggled. New Mexico State's guards were just having their way against and defending Utah State's backcourt. That's one where you're worried, like, is New Mexico really going to play that bad just because of change of venue? Coming to Utah State, or the Aggies and be able to win just because they're at home? But I think with San Diego State, a rematch does a lot of things. One, you have experience against them. You'll have a chance to have actually gone against them. And I feel like the Aggies still match up fairly well with San Diego State, or well enough, where a change of venue I think really can lead to a win. Now, that's no guarantee. San Diego State could very easily just come in. I shouldn't say very easily, but they could very possibly come in and defeat the Aggies in the Spectrum. They're one of the last handful of Mountain West teams to pull off a win in the Spectrum. But I'd still be fairly confident with this matchup at home and even in the Mountain West tournament that the Aggies can very much defeat San Diego State. They just obviously, there are things they need to work on. They need to be able to perform better against San Diego State's defense, and I think they can. And they can also hopefully be able to rely on not as dominant a game from some random bench guy who's starting that particular night and hits 5 shots overall and 2 3-pointers.
Yeah, look, San Diego State, they've got 3 losses in the Mountain West. All 3 of those losses are against the top teams in the Mountain West on the road.
Yeah.
So they struggled at New Mexico. They lost to Boise State by a point. They lost to Colorado State by single digits. They were competitive, but in those other 2 losses. But they've struggled away from home.
Yeah, and they scored, I think, 70 or fewer in all 3 of those games.
71 against Colorado State.
71.
But really close. 66 against Boise and 70 at New Mexico.
Yeah.
So lower scoring outputs for San Diego State.
And that's something, if San Diego State doesn't score 81 points, this is obviously a very different game. They're much better jump shooting, where the Aggies actually defended the paint pretty well. You hold them to 7 of 12 on shots at the rim. Mind you, 12 shots at the rim, that's a really low number, and you could be really happy with, you hold any team to 12 attempts at the rim. And 7 of 12, that's not the worst percentage anyway. That's, a little over 50%, maybe bordering on 60%. You'd live with that as a team. But San Diego State, they're a team that shoots 37% on jumpers on the season, and they shot 44 against the Aggies. Now, maybe they do that in the Spectrum, and if they do that, then hats off to them. But I don't suspect it'll happen. But again, the Aggies are going to have to be able to play that defense. They're going to have another game where they force San Diego State into a low number of rim attempts. And to be honest, I think the Aggies in this game had a similarly small. Actually, no, they had a lot more shots at the rim. Yeah, I guess in my mind they shot fewer attempts at the rim. They had 24 attempts at the rim. Of course, they only went 13 of 24, so barely over 50%. But, not only were they missing at the rim, they were missing from distance. They go 6 of 23 on three-pointers.
But to accompany that, usually when they're getting those shots at the rim, if those shots aren't going in, it's probably because it's Great Osipor is getting fouled and he's going to the free throw line. He's getting those points in other ways. If the ball doesn't go in, he's still getting the points in other ways, and that didn't happen on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think for one, I know a lot of people were not too happy about the refereeing. I didn't think it was that bad.
I thought...
For me, I felt like Utah State wasn't aggressive enough in forcing fouls. And in situations where there's contact at the rim, San Diego State was in a defensive position, and you're less likely to get called for fouls in those situations. I thought they contested well in the paint. whereas Utah State didn't contest very well. They weren't disciplined. There was a quick whistle in favor of the Aztecs, I think. But, I don't know, I think for Utah State, they were almost expecting those whistles to happen no matter what. Then they didn't get them. And, didn't know what to do after that point.
Yeah, I really didn't have a problem with the officiating. I felt like San Diego State, they were the aggressors. They set the tone. And Utah State, even though USU jumped out early, the early lead, I mean, that sounds weird to say that I felt like San Diego State set the tone. But I felt with their style of play, because USU, they were hitting their shots early. But I felt like San Diego State set the tone of how this game is going to be played. And Utah State never really changed that, or at least answered that. I think they were stretches where they tried, and they kind of got it into single digits. But San Diego State ultimately controlled the game, and USU struggled to adapt to it, and instead of them setting the tone. And so the refs get accustomed that this is how this game is being played today. And I don't think Utah State ever changed their mind or changed how the tone of the game.
Yeah, I think there was really
their favor, at least.
I think there was really one stretch where they managed to settle in and not foul a lot. And surprisingly, it wasn't really the stretch early on in the game, because the reason the Aggies got a 24-17 lead is they just made all their shots and forced some turnovers. They were still fouling inside. San Diego State were still hitting shots when they took them, but the Aggies were just making more shots and forcing turnovers so the Aztecs weren't attempting shots. But in the second half, they got San Diego State into a stretch where they were missing some shots. They held them scoreless for a couple of stretches. But that's where Utah State's own lack of shooting came into play. Had their offense made a move, they could have pushed back, maybe even taken a lead. Had they gone on a run where you make 4 out of 5 shots, the kind that teams will tend to have. Like, their defense, for a little bit, made an effort that could have produced a run, but the offense wasn't there. But like I said, outside of, the entire rest of the game, 35 minutes, outside like a 5 or 6 minute stretch where they played really great defense, the Aggies defense wasn't there overall.
I got a text coming in, a reminder, if you want to weigh in, we always love to hear from you, reacting to the game on Saturday where Utah State lost to San Diego State 81-67. We'll get into all the updated rankings and nets and all that stuff, the polls. But want to get to the text line, 8968, weighing in, saying, I've got to admit that at the end of the football season, I didn't have much hope for the basketball season. They were doing so well that I got greedy. As a result, I was disappointed as heck last Saturday. Down to earth we come.
Yeah, it's very possible that the Aggies are on the precipice of, or were maybe a few days ago, the precipice of a really rough stretch. Because we've talked about this 6-game stretch, now the next 5 games since we've played one of them, where they're facing 5 teams that are in the top 6 of the conference. Well, 5 games against teams in the top 6. They played San Diego State twice in this stretch. 2 of them are on the road, 2 of them are at home. Then the last one's the game that isn't against the top 6 teams at Wyoming, so it's just another road game too. So if the Aggies are going to have a downfall this season, it would be right now, if that's happening. I don't think it will. I just don't see it. I see these Aggies as very capable of battling in all these games, especially 2 games at home against Nevada, who's really struggling right now. I think they match up well against Boise. They're going to get them at home. And so at that point, it's then, all right, can you win at Wyoming? Can you win at Colorado State? And then you get San Diego State at home, who I've talked about. I very much think they can compete in that one and win that one. So, there's a chance, if we're in the universe where the Aggies go like 0-5 in this stretch or 0-6, this is where it would happen.
Yeah.
If they had a 3, 4, 5 game losing streak, this is where that would happen. I just don't necessarily see that.
Yeah, I don't see that either. I think they've shown us with their coaching, with their leadership on the floor, and with their talent, this is a good enough team that they're not going to lose all these games. They're going to be competitive. They're going to win some. The games, they've got good games at home, a great home crowd, and this team really responds at home to that as we've seen. So, a chance to get back quick, put it in the back. Forget it. Move on to the next because you don't have much time. They got a game against Nevada, who's still among the top 6 in the net rankings and in the standings. So this is still a pretty good team coming into town tomorrow.
Yeah. I want to take a quick break. We have some more texts coming in. We'll get to those on the other side. We'll also break down the other games that happened in the Mountain West this week or over the weekend. So we'll have that coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Do you have a fireplace or stove that isn't working right? Don't wait until winter to get it fixed. Get ahead of the game and get your fireplace or stove serviced now by the best of Northern Utah winter, Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They service everything from Quadra-Fire pellet stoves to heat and glow fireplaces. Get a 20% discount on your next service and labor when you mention this ad. Call 752-7272 or go to advancedfireplaceandstove.com. Advanced Fireplace and Stove, where comfort is their business.
It's never too late or too cold to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details. Nearly 21 years ago, Cafe Sabor opened their doors in historic Logan train station. With the help of hundreds of amazing employees and patronage of thousands of wonderful customers, Cafe Sabor is proud to have been voted 3 years in a row Cache Valley's favorite Mexican restaurant in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Follow Cafe Sabor on social media for giveaways and promotions. Search Cafe Sabor for a restaurant near you. Thank you, Cache Valley, from your friends at Cafe Sabor.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
Westwood One is the only place for exclusive audio coverage of every NFL postseason game. Hi, this is Scott Graham. Join us throughout the month of January and into February as we bring you Super Wildcard Weekend, the Divisional Round, Championship Sunday, and of course Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. All 13 NFL playoff games are on Westwood One. If it's the NFL playoffs, it's right here.
On Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
This is Nate Lamson with Valley Office Systems, your home team when local matters. Valley Office Systems is your local provider for all things office, copiers, printers, furniture, and document management. Proudly serving Cache Valley since 2007. Visit valleyofficesystems.com.
So much of our lives are online today that it's hard to know if we're being scammed. Keep your online information secure with simple steps you can take today. To learn more, go to CISA at cisa.gov/secure our world.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker and Eric Frandsen. If you guys want to join the show, feel free to text the Full Court Press text line 435-339-0321. Have a text coming in. We were talking about Utah State against San Diego State, obviously recapping big game over the weekend. The Aggies losing 81-67. 5452 on that subject says, of course, the Aztecs have won 17 straight at home. Hard not to when the horrible Mountain West refs are in your back pocket. Aggies didn't play their best game, but tough time playing 8 versus 5. Aztecs could be more physical without fouls being called, and a couple of career games won't happen in the Spectrum. On that first segment, I think me and Eric kind of made our point clear that I didn't really think the referees impacted the game. I know there were plenty who were upset about it, feeling there was 8 versus 5. To me, the worst you could say is that there was a quick whistle against several of the Aggies on defense. when I watched the Aztecs, they played physical without fouling. And I think that's the frustration is you had a bit of a quick whistle on the Aggies. Because there were a couple I thought were kind of dumb. And so in that respect, I can't necessarily say that it's wrong to say that San Diego State could be physical without fouling, because maybe you could argue the Aggies weren't getting that same deference. But a lot of the fouls that I saw that were called by the Aggies, like with a couple of exceptions, but the vast majority, I felt like, yeah, that was a foul. They were out of position, and they kept trying to play defense out of position. That's 99% of what fouls are. Is you're out of position, you try and play defense anyway when you're out of position. The Aztecs were in position and played physical, but weren't fouling. That's why they're not getting fouls called, and that's why the Aggies were. There were a few that I didn't like, but to me, I didn't feel like this was a game that was really impacted that much by the referees. Again, aside from maybe a quick whistle or two.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that San Diego State set the tone, and I think, I think I've made my point clear there.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I just felt like they were quicker, they're a little bit more aggressive, and I think Utah State struggled with that. And it was because we could easily make the argument the other way around on other games that Utah State has played. That look at all the free throw disparity in some of these games that Utah State's been a part of. How many times Greg Osabar goes to the line? Yeah,
Osabar usually gets a lot of those touch fouls.
Yeah,
where he gets pushed in the post.
So I don't want to say this was an equalizing game, to because Utah State's gotten away with it before. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just don't think that the way Utah State played was
they didn't do enough to draw fouls.
Abnormal, right? That look like, oh my gosh, the refs are out and they're totally favoring the Aztecs.
Yeah.
Why if it's a national broadcast, why wouldn't you feature the team that is in the top 20 and support them versus the team that's not ranked?
Yeah.
Well, I get it. San Diego State went to the championship last year, and they're kind of the flag bearer for the Mountain West. But there are several very good basketball teams in the conference this year. So what sense would it be to favor one over the other?
Yeah.
That never carries water with me.
Want to talk about feel free to send in more thoughts on the Utah State's game against San Diego State and also about the team going forward. 435-339-0321 is a full court press text line. Looking at other games in the Mountain West this week, and I'll be honest, it felt like a bit of a snooze fest when looking at the rest of the matchups. Because you had Utah State, San Diego State, and that was pretty much it. Because, go back to Friday, the game that happened after we signed off for the weekend. Nevada wins over San Jose State 90-60.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's...
snoozer.
Yeah, and then you have Boise State hosting Air Force, 94-56.
Snoozer. Even worse.
UNLV hosting Wyoming, 62-48.
Which blows my mind. Wyoming can go from beating Colorado State, having some surprise wins, big-time scoring from a couple different guys, surprise guys, and then only manage 48 at UNLV?
I don't know. UNLV just seems to be the team that can lock you down, but then also never stop you, or have an unstoppable offense, but then never be able to score. This one, they only get the 62 points. Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
But to be honest with Wyoming, I feel like that's kind of a bit of who they are is they're streaky. Because we've seen them put up gobs of points. But then they put up, 58 against Utah State? Then, 48. It's like they have guys that can put up points.
Yeah, they locked down Boise State pretty good.
Yeah. It's like, Sam Griffin and Akul Khan, when they can go off, they can go off. And Wenzel, he can go off as well. But it's like, there's a reason those guys aren't in the conversation for Player of the Year. Like, Sam Griffin is he'll drift between, second and fourth, back and forth in, conference scoring per game. But he's not in the conversation for Player of the Year, even though all the other guys in that top 5 are. Ledee and Osborne and Stevens and all that.
Right.
It's because some of those guys are a little more reliable than others.
The other game of the night was Colorado State winning on the road at Fresno State 73-61. So
that was the closest game of the weekend.
Just crazy.
12-point game, and that was the closest anyone got in terms of final score. Of course, the funny thing with Air Force and Boise State, I think late in the first half, Air Force was leading that game. I think I saw some, because I didn't follow that game really that closely. I didn't have any plans to follow it. And apparently Air Force had a lead for a bit late in that game, and then Boise State just clobbered them. 53-point second half. Ended up finishing the first half up 41-27. I think it was something like 26-25, 27-25.
Yeah, pulling it up right now. It looked like it was 27-25. Air Force had the lead. Just under 7 minutes to go. It was back and forth. Quite a tight game.
So Boise State scores the last 16 points of the half.
And then both teams kind of go cold. It's a tie game with like three and a half minutes to go, 3:45. But Air Force stays cold.
Yeah.
And Boise takes off, and they just separate and never look back.
Yeah, and they put 94 points on the board. Really a good rebound week for the Broncos. They went 1-1 last week. Lose to Utah State as well, but then getting the win over New Mexico and that big one over Air Force. So Max Rice getting Player of the Week. And
largely due to his performance at New Mexico.
Yeah, he only had like 12 points against Air Force. It was that 35-pointer. But yeah, just not the most, I guess, exciting games. So you had the one headliner, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
You had like two really great games this week with Boise State, New Mexico, then Utah State, San Diego State.
A couple more texts rolling through. 8968. I was told as a player way back when, if you need the refs to win games for you, you're not going to win many. Yeah, you play as if the refs don't matter. But the thing is, the refs do matter because you need to know how they're calling a game. And then you have to adjust how they're calling a game. Because sometimes the ref will let you play. And so you just keep playing. Other refs are pretty quick on their whistles. So you kind of have to adjust how physical or how much contact you can have or how much you can be aggressive going after guys. So part of the game is adjusting to the refs, not just your opponent on the court, but also how the refs are calling the game. And I think that's something that kind of surprised me, how Utah State struggled to make that adjustment through the game on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think the game is about who plays the best within the bounds of the rules, and unfortunately the rules can vary slightly with the referees. It's kind of like what we've seen with the Aggies struggling in the NCAA tournament. It feels like you get to the tournament and you get to play a little bit more. But they're not ready for that. But that's one thing where I think this team may be able to change that. I feel like they would be ready.
Yeah.
Like they're almost hindered by the more fouls getting called in the Mountain West.
Right. 'Cause, yeah, Danny Sprinkle plays an aggressive style of defense, get after it. And I think this team would do fine with that different interpretation of calls in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think they can play more physically. This team has, especially early on, I feel like maybe they've gone away from it, partly because they're playing just better teams, is they played a super physical style without fouling. They stay in front of their guy and they're walling them off, but they keep their hands up and they play physical, and, instead of driving into the lane, they drive them into the sideline or deep on the baseline. And so the Aggies can play physical without fouling. They just didn't against San Diego State. And I think that's something they're going to have to work on, especially in the post. They really struggle in the post to defend without fouling.
Yeah. 9315 with a couple of texts coming through. I still think that USU is just as good as San Diego State. It's hard to win in their arena, just like hard for USU to lose in the Spectrum. So I think if we meet them in Vegas, we beat them. Also, Ticket Stub has the cheapest ticket for Saturday game that are left. Says, if I remember right, $175 for the cheapest. Crazy.
Yeah, I think these two games, Saturday's game is, I think those have been sold out since the second they announced that they're going to be renaming the court after Stu Morrill that day. So it's going to be a pretty crazy game.
Yeah, they're going up on the secondary market.
Yeah, and it's one that you can hardly afford to lose. I guess they can afford to lose it because they already beat Boise State. They've built themselves a cushion. But just imagine the fact that Boise State's going to be up there in the top of the standings all year. You're going to really want that tiebreaker over them.
Yes.
The best you can do is split with New Mexico and San Diego State if you win at home. You've lost that cushion with those guys. but get a sweep over Boise State, that's massive. And I don't know how much that would factor into, like, if there's a 3 or 4-way tie for first the rest of the way. But A, getting the sweep over them. 2, you can complete a 2-0 week, potentially, if you get the win over Nevada. Launch yourself back up in the standings. Sole first place, most likely. Well, if you go 2-0, you will have sole first place, guaranteed.
Yes.
Nobody can catch him. So that Saturday game is going to be larger than life. It's going to be one of the most important games played in the Spectrum in quite a while.
Yeah, and look, Boise State, they keep climbing the rankings. So there's a very good chance that on Saturday that's going to be a quad 1 game.
That's possible. It'll be on the fringe. Because, Boise State is climbing after they had a couple of letdowns, and obviously one of those letdowns being the loss to Utah State. But obviously last week was a big, big climb for them with that win over New Mexico. And it just makes Boise State one of the weirdest teams in the Mountain West. Because of all the teams in the top 6, of the 14 games played between them, home team is 3-11. Boise State has 2 of those 3 road wins. Utah State has the other over Boise State. Boise State also has a random home loss to UNLV. So they have 2 home losses, but also 2 of the 3 road wins between, those top 6 teams in the Mountain West. They're just really weird. Yeah. They're not impacted by venue. They're not following. Everyone else is following the trend. Like, if you remove Boise State from the equation, it's like, what, 1-11, something like that? 1-10? But, then suddenly Boise State comes in, and they're capable of winning on the road, and that's why Saturday can be such a dangerous game. Because, if Max Rice is back, if he has another big game, he's going to be fired up. He doesn't like Utah State.
No.
So maybe he has a really good game. And, New Mexico couldn't stop him. And if Max Rice is on, he's on. There's nothing you can do to stop him.
It could be tough. I mean, they got to get past Nevada first and kind of figure out what went wrong in San Diego. This is the Aggies. Look, they've got I'll say a decent inside presence. It'd be great if there was somebody else who could be a scoring threat in the paint with Osibor. Falslip is great at attacking the rim and slashing. And I think that Brown can do that sometimes too. Martinez, he can score at multiple levels. Johnson's not really an impact scorer in the paint. He'll score when the opportunity befits him. If a putback rebound, or if it's
more of a jump shot. He's hitting.
Yeah, if it's a smaller person on him and he can just kind of get it over the top of him, he's not going to power through anybody.
Yeah.
But Sacco, Templin, those are guys that kind of have to come in and establish themselves a little bit better with a physical presence in the paint without accumulating a ton of fouls.
I don't think they need another guy. They have Osibor. This guy's top 15.
I'm not saying they have to replace him, but they need somebody to complement him. Or when he's not on the floor, where's that inside presence coming from?
You don't need another inside presence. You need more outside presence. That's the problem they have, is he has so much gravity, he can draw 2, even 3 guys. So when you have a guy who can draw a triple team, what you don't need is someone standing in the dunker spot on the other side of the key.
No, that's true.
That's redundant and a problem.
Crowded.
That's usually the problem, is that Sacco will stand over there, or if, maybe it's Templin in, like if they don't have 4, I'll say shooters, if you have that, if Osborne's playing center, there's usually 4 shooters unless it's Templin. But if he's playing, with Sacco or with Templin, the problem is those guys can't stretch the floor, and it's so much easier to double team Osibor. You don't need another interior presence unless Osibor's off the floor. That's where you can say you would need it. But he's off the floor for at most 8 minutes a game.
Right.
So really what they need is they need they need Johnson to be making more shots. They need Falslip to be making shots. They need guys who, when Osibor passes to them, they can either hit the 3-point shot. And I think this is where maybe you're talking about inside presence, guys who can effectively attack a closeout. But I think they have those guys. I think Ian can attack a closeout. Mason sure as heck can attack a closeout.
Yes.
And even Isaac Johnson is actually really good at attacking closeouts. Sacco's never going to attack a closeout because he's not a shooter.
No.
If he's attacking a closeout, it means somebody screwed up their job and didn't read the scouting report.
No, my point is not so much that I'm thinking that Utah State needs a secondary guy alongside Asabor, but that there are times where they need somebody else who can attack the rim from a bigger bodied person. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest Achilles heel of this team is that reliable shooting beyond the arc or outside of the paint really only comes down to one guy who can consistently score, and that is Ian Martinez. The shooters beyond that are inconsistent or not as reliable. And so until they put a lot of time in the gym or USU finds somebody else, this is the team that they have. And that's, man, what a tough team to defend if Utah State had just an automatic knockdown shooter on the roster that you knew if the ball's going in his direction, this ball's going up, and very high likelihood it's going in.
Yeah, that's...
Because when you consider everything else this team does defensively, inside presence, in the way that it's difficult to score on them, if you have what Great Asabor does in the low post, scoring or getting to the free throw line, you had that automatic, reliable weapon on the outside. Wow, this team would be really, really tough to beat.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think in the end we can agree that if you had a more reliable complementary score, which Ian Martinez has largely been that. I mean, the Aggies probably lost because Ian Martinez just had a bad shooting night. And the Aztecs having a bunch of their guys have above average. 0366 saying, I agree with Eric. If Asabor goes down, the Aggies are screwed. Which, you can say that about a lot of players on a lot of teams. Like if Jaden Ledee went down, if Isaiah Stevens went down, if Jalen House went down, or J.T. Toppin, or Keenan Blackshear. The Aggies are very much relying on Asabor being there.
Oh, absolutely.
But, yeah,
he is the anchor.
We'll assume that he's going to keep being there. And, like I said, they have him. He drives the offense. But obviously the best teams have multiple guys. All the best teams have multiple guys. The Aggies they've had Ian Martinez. He's won them several games. The game against the Aztecs, they didn't have that as much. It was Asabor. Mason had a decent game, but then the rest of the team was kind of terrible. So they had two guys, but nobody else. San Diego State had like five guys.
Yeah. We're overdue for a timeout.
Yeah, we are. So we'll take this quick break, and we'll come back on the other side here on the Full Court Press.
Stop. If you're shopping for tires, stop. Don't buy tires today. Wait, because the biggest tire sale of the year is starting Wednesday at Discount Tire and Automotive in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. There's no need to shop around because you'll get the absolute guaranteed lowest prices in town or online on your favorite brands, including BF Goodrich, Michelin, Cooper, Toyo, and Goodyear. I repeat, do not buy tires today. The best tire deals are coming Wednesday to Discount Tire and Automotive in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. Tires with prices so low you won't believe it. Choose 12 months no interest, no credit check financing, or layaway. The biggest sale of the year is starting Wednesday at Discount Tire and Automotive in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. The deals are so good the manufacturers won't allow the prices to be given over the phone. Don't miss the Discount Tire and Automotive warehouse sale. 4 days only starting Wednesday. Go to Discount Tire and Automotive in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield.
Discount Tire. So much more than a tire store.
At Cache Valley Bank, it's their people that make the difference.
Hello, I'm Ivan Cherry, Commercial Loan Officer at Cache Valley Bank. My family and I love this valley and enjoy connecting with its people and communities. I appreciate the opportunities I've had to work closely with local businesses to tailor solutions to meet their financial goals. Come visit me at our Hiram branch or give me a call and let me show you what opening an account with Cache Valley Bank can do for you. We look forward to meeting you. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
A romantic setting, delicious cuisines, mouth-watering desserts, and your favorite dinner date. Celebrate your Valentine at Elements Restaurant. Along with Elements' delightful regular menu, you'll find Valentine specials that also include dessert, juicy mouth-watering steaks, plus seafood and chicken entrees, complete with your choice of red velvet cake, cream-filled pastries, or chocolate-covered strawberries. Make this Valentine's Day extraordinary. Reserve today at theelementsrestaurant.com or call 750-5171.
750-5171.
She was there for you on your first day of school and all those special moments since. Now, Mom needs you. When Mom or someone you love needs home health or hospice, give them the care they deserve. With core values of character, experience, and trust, see why we have been voted Best of Northern Utah. Contact Aggies today, 435-723-9000, or find us on the web at myaggies.com.
Finding effective and affordable insurance solutions can be stressful. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. As a kid growing up, my father, Gordon, took care of my insurance, and I knew I never needed to worry. I was covered. I've continued to provide that same service for my clients at Quality First. My team of experienced agents work hard to ensure every customer gets the help they need. Let's sit down and take the stress out of your insurance. Call us today, 435-752-0101.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the full court press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Got to take a really quick segment here. We got really behind on our segments. We had a really long second segment. But we had a text come in, 9315, saying next year we'll have an automatic shooter. Can't wait.
Yeah, Case, why not?
Yeah,
dude's a walking bucket.
He is. He's a good shooter, too. He's taking tons of three-pointers. He makes like 50+% of his threes. Granted, that's high school, but that's still three-point shooting. You don't make those on accident.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's not all doom and gloom here. I mean, this is a good team. They just had a setback against another very good team who historically plays very well at home, and a team that went to the national championship last year with a number of their guys back. So, yeah, the Aztecs are a tough out, have been, and not much to change there. Utah State learned the hard way, and we've had some lessons here to figure out, look, this is a good conference. Look, there are as many Mountain West teams in the top 50 of the net as the ACC. It has more teams in the top 50 of the net than the Big Ten. It has more teams in the top 50 of the net than a number of what you would consider Power 5 conferences like the Pac-12. So this is a very good league. It's tough to win every game in this league.
0298, one more text and we'll go to our quick break. Says what got us at San Diego State was they had two or three guys play/score way above their average, while their top scorer was held under their average, and Ian Martinez couldn't get going. And I couldn't agree more.
Summed up the game right there.
That definitely was it right there. I said a lot of guys shooting above their average, and wouldn't expect that to happen in the Spectrum, but you can't guarantee it won't. So the Aggies still got to play hard in that game, and carry over what they did good in the San Diego State game, along with trying work on what they didn't do. Of course, that starts with the game against Nevada. But we got to take another break. We'll finish up the first hour here on the Full Court Press coming up next.
A diamond is forever and is perfect to represent your love. For those special occasions, give her a natural, one-of-a-kind diamond, as unique as she is. Our exclusive brand of Needham Brilliant Diamonds are white in color, high in clarity, and are recognized for their precise cut. These diamonds are natural, untreated, and are the real thing. Show her you care enough to give her a diamond, an investment for generations to come. Open Monday through Saturday 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. SC Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Security. It's the most precious thing you can give your home, especially if it's guaranteed. No cheap locks, no weak keys, no inadequate hardware, just the expertise and precision and security. Beezer Lock and Key believes there's no place like a safe home, and no home safer than one secured by them. It may seem they only sell locks and keys, but what they really sell is peace of mind. Search Beezer Lock and Key or go to 4th North and 1st West and just add confidence.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Medicare can seem complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Let us help. We'll answer all your questions and get you specific information that fits your needs. Medicare is not one size fits all. We'll help you find the right coverage for you. Call 752-9493. You can ignore the TV and the junk mail. We'll get you the exact information you need. We will help you access the benefits that are important to you. Call LSS Insurance at 752-9493.
Are you getting overwhelmed by decisions regarding Social Security? Adams Wealth Advisors is here to help you secure your financial future by helping you navigate the complexities of the Social Security system. The team of experts at Adams Wealth Advisors is ready to guide you through the process and tailor a custom financial plan that fits your goals and aspirations. With Adams Wealth Advisors, it's not just about managing your wealth, it's about empowering your future. Call 752-1702 or search online for Adams Wealth Advisors to schedule an appointment with a Social Security expert today.
Locker 42 is a store for Utah State fans. Many of the items you'll find there are custom, one-of-a-kind, produced by Locker 42. Such production allows for the best possible prices and custom orders that are unheard of at this level, and is one of the highest contributing licensees for royalty sales. Your purchase at Locker 42 is supporting scholarships and student athletes. Hoodies, t-shirts, hats, jackets, everything Aggie is at Locker 42. Locker 42, a store for Aggie fans by Aggie fans.
Attention Artisan Eyewear fans! Crystal Vision is gearing up for their annual trip in search of 2024's latest eyeglass frames. To prep, their shelves will be undergoing a major transformation to make way for the new and upcoming styles. Crystal Vision is offering 50% off select current styles of handcrafted eyeglasses through February. Don't miss your chance to be fit by their expert opticians with one-of-a-kind artisan eyewear at a fraction of the price. Craftsmanship, detail, and savings. It's all waiting for you at Crystal Vision on 14th North or crystalvision.com.
Following the local teams, it's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
If you're a do-it-yourself kind of guy or gal, then your locally owned Napa Auto Parts store is a good place to know. They were voted Gold Winner Best of Northern Utah. And they feature all the best brands: Croyle, Amstel, Schaefer, BG, Seafoam. You find it all and more at your 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts locations. Had a text come in during the break, 2305. You mentioned Case Why Not. And they texted, "What can you tell us about that kid? I'm sorry I don't remember his name that Coach Sprinkle recruited. I think he's from Montana and he averages like 30-plus a game. Or is anybody keeping track of what he's doing this year, and what position does he play?" Yeah, so Case Why Not? Yeah, he plays 2A ball in Idaho.
Yep.
He does average something like 35 points a game. He became the Idaho all-time scoring leader.
Yep.
As of a couple weeks ago, I think.
Last week?
Yeah, I know
week and a half ago?
I think we mentioned it on the show. I can't remember if it was like end of like 2 weeks ago, like a week from last Friday. I feel like that may have been it. But, yeah, a very talented guy. He, like I said, he shoots like high 40s, low 50s on three-pointers.
He's a wing. I think you describe him as a wing player.
Yeah, like if you're talking about position, I would say I'm not comparing him to the player, but as far as position played, kind of similar to Sean Bairstow. Listed as a guard, plays small forward, maybe even power forward. Obviously, at the high school level, he's probably technically playing center. But
yeah, he's big for high school, but when you put him in a college gym, he'd be a wing player.
Yeah, he's coming on the wing, sometimes play a small ball 4, but more full-time small forward. Depending on how quick he is, maybe you could get away with playing him at shooting guard, but you'd put him out there as small forward. Essentially, like Aduje comes in and plays the 3. Sometimes the 4 if he has to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of who Case Why Not is. He's a very interesting prospect, the guy who puts up, nationally ranked numbers. And I think at one point he was the leading scorer in the country he may or may not still be that because that can be really fluid. But yeah, once he gets to college, he's going to have to, come to grips with the fact that everyone else is 6'6" and 220 pounds, but that shooting can still translate. I think he can still be quite the baller. And he's quick and athletic, too. He's not just some tall guy that shoots. He's quick, athletic, can play the position. So I know I've watched him a little bit.
But he'll be a nice addition to Danny Sprinkle's squad, for sure.
I think it will be. All right, that'll be it for the first hour. Make sure to join us next hour. We'll talk returning production for college football.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. After Sean McVay famously turned around the LA Rams as the youngest head coach in NFL history, offensive coaches have become all the rage throughout the yearly head coaching cycle. Well, that's mostly due to the effect a brilliant coordinator can have on a young quarterback. Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan are two perfect examples of that, but we have to be careful not to overlook the impact of great defensive minds. Despite a unique offensive scheme, the Niners and Chiefs both rank inside the top 5 in scoring defense this year. And when you look at the teams who have won the Super Bowl over the last decade, 8 of those teams have had a defense ranked inside the top 10 in scoring. A dominant defense keeps you in every game and consistently provides offenses the luxury of a short field. That can cover up plenty of mistakes throughout the season. So while chasing the next great young offensive mind may sound great in today's high-scoring, pass-happy NFL, one thing remains true. Defense still wins championships. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.